We're here, live and in action. Summer's Off Podcast, Episode 1.
Episode 1.
Woo! It's happening. It's crazy. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Like we said, this is our first episode of Summer's Off. We're hoping to have this podcast available on iTunes, Spotify, hopefully kind of wherever you get your podcasts from is kind of our plan. But we're going to make sure that we hit iTunes and Spotify. We will always link it on Facebook, so you can like, rate, review, smiley face, kissy face, whatever you want to do. Just do something good for the podcast. We would love you forever.
Gosh, as I'm listening to you right now, like, you've done a lot of research getting ready for this. You sound like a podcaster.
Do I really?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I've potted once or twice in my day.
Okay.
Yeah, speaking of which, this isn't just a lone wolf podcast. The voice you heard was my voluptuous, luscious, wonderful, bombacious babe of a co-host, Rachel Ann. Rach, what's up?
Glad to be here. Really excited about this podcast, and looking forward to your questions.
Oh, yeah? Well, I don't know if you should be. I mean, some of these are hard-hitting questions. So why don't you tell us the idea for why we're doing this? Why did we decide that we wanted to do a podcast?
So, Ty and I typically have our summers off because we work at a school.
Hence the name.
So, during the summertime, one of our hobbies that we like to do a lot is to watch movies together. That's kind of one of our mutual passions. And when we're watching movies or when we're talking about movies, a lot of times different titles will come up and we'll say things like, wait, you've never seen that movie? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is something you kind of find out when you've been married to somebody for, in those first few years, you figure out what it is that person doesn't know that you think should be pretty common.
Yeah, and we've done this before. We just didn't podcast about it in the past, where we made a list and we had to conquer each other's lists and get through everything. So It's kind of fun that we've discovered even more movies and made a second list. Only this time we're going to take people on the journey with us.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
Lucky them.
Yeah. So our movie lists are really different, though.
Yeah. Your list so far, from what I can gather, of movies that I haven't seen typically take place between 1977 and 1989, maybe?
A little later than that. Come on.
I was a little young for a lot of these movies when they first came out, but they're I think you'll see the trend pretty quickly as you start to name some of these titles of what movies I did not grow up seeing but should have.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies. There's a gap in your filmography right now. And I think it's because you had really great parents. They made sure you didn't watch naughty movies. My parents were great too.
Shout out to Mom and Dad.
My parents are also awesome. But I got away with a lot more because I was sneaky. And so I think what we've found is that you have a collection of movies that I loved as a kid and watched over and over and over again, even though I probably shouldn't have been. I just snuck VHSs down in the basement. And you haven't seen these movies. Yeah. So it's really important that I'm able to share this with you. But your movies are drastically different. You want to break us off a little preview of the remix of what your movies are going to be like?
Well, I think mine are typically more female-driven movies, I would say. And they're kind of random. They're all over the place. Now, you actually, to your credit, have seen a good chunk of romantic comedies.
Oh, yeah.
One of your favorites is The Notebook. So that's not a romantic comedy, but you know what I mean. I can't. Yep. So, sorry to throw that out there.
Hey, that's okay. You know what? We're being honest with ourselves. Notebook, Love Actually. I enjoy a nice.
You have good taste in romantic comedies and quote unquote chick flicks. So, to kind of help neutralize the uber masculinity that you're throwing at me with your list, I thought I'd try to counter that with a couple of classic female-driven romantic comedies / chick flicks that maybe you haven't seen. Mm-hmm. Mine are not the blockbusters that you're having me see, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what you think of them and the whiplash I feel like we're gonna get from watching each other's movies.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. And I'll be honest, I'm excited about almost every pick that you have on your list. Besides a couple movies that are on your list that I've maybe seen like most of, or like I have a pretty good grasp on. Some of them, I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, but it's scary at the same time.
You gotta trust. That's what marriage is all about. You gotta trust me.
So we're going to have a couple segments as we go through the podcast and we concentrate on each individual film. But I want to throw it out to whoever listens to this, all two of you. And I want to say, hey.
Shout out to Mom and Dad.
If you have ideas that you would like us to incorporate in the podcast, we would love to freshen up some stuff, to just throw pizza at the wall and see how many pepperonis stick. Is that a...
No.
Is that a
I
phrase?
knew you were going to ask me that. You looked like you wanted to say, is that a phrase? And no, Ty, that's not a phrase.
Oh,
but
okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I liked it. It works. I get what you're saying.
So, Rach, why don't you tell everybody what our very first film of the podcast is going to be?
The first film that we're watching is Your Movie for Me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Predator.
I ain't got time to bleed.
Oh, that's from this movie?
Heck yeah, it is. Tune in next week. We're going to talk all about it. Later.
Cool.